Hey guys, it's Wheeling the Gamer Girl here. And yes, it has been 28 years since the PBS Kids show Arthur came out. So actually today I would like to do a summary video of one of the worst episodes of Arthur, which is Arthur's Big Hit. It is a season 4 episode 1B of the series. So actually let's dive right into it. So actually the summary is Arthur wonders, is it ever okay to hit someone? Sometimes when you lose a temper, you want to fight with people. You want to hurt anyone. But he experiences considerable confusion and finally clarifies to find himself for both ends on the hitting question. So before the episode actually began with Arthur making his own plane as a project, this all started in a boxing area arena with Francine as the referee, and Arthur and DW were about to duke it out in the ring. Buster is in Arthur's corner while Nadine is in DW's. Both of them have mouthpieces put into their mouths, and the fight was about to start when Arthur sees another DW also sitting in the crowd. But then he finds out that one of them was in the ring, and that was actually Pinky Barnes in a costume that looks like DW. Pinky says that he figured that Arthur would fight someone rather than his own size. The real DW laughs while Pinky chases Arthur. And I just do believe that, that was actually a pretty bad ending, because I know Binky is one of the toughest guys in Arthur's class, but eventually he knows that it's wrong to hurt anyone. You know what I mean? Yeah, let's just cut it to the chase, okay? Alright, so after the title card was actually here, Arthur was actually seen building a scale model of the Bell X1 model plane, which broke the sound barrier. DW thinks that the set is mostly the pieces in the corner. It's actually a broken game. But Arthur angrily kicks DW out of the room. The next day, as Arthur is putting together the plane, DW spills one of the bottles accidentally and runs out of sight. And a few days later, while DW plays with the plane, while the paint is wet, which forces Arthur to repaint it. The next day, Arthur completes the plane and daydreams about receiving the blue ribbon and perhaps getting it to fly the real thing. But unfortunately, DW deliberately disobeys Arthur, as her brother told her not to touch the plane because it is not a toy. She holds it up and pretends to fly around the room, and then throws the plane out of the window under the mistaken assumption that it'll actually fly. The model crashes to the ground, and DW finds Arthur to tell him that he made the plane all wrong. But eventually, the two of them run outside to survey the damage. When Arthur sees the plane destroyed on the ground, he gasps in shock, not noticing that her sister broke it. DW tells Arthur that she couldn't understand the reason why the plane broke the sound barrier, that falling out of a window should be able to break it. But this goes a little too far when Arthur loses the temper and scolds DW. But she doesn't acknowledge how angry he was and continue to know how Arthur actually made the plane wrongly since it didn't fly. She asked him that he didn't read the instructions and said it wasn't her fault if he made a plane that doesn't fly. Arthur, then reaching the breaking point, punches DW into the arm and makes her cry. Once he was about to pick up the broken pieces of the plane, Arthur gets into trouble by his mother by calling middle name. In the kitchen, David actually applies the ice to the spot on DW's arm when Arthur punched her. DW then asks a scary question if they will amputate her arm. But her father says no, but it's the right word, amputate. She asks again, this time using the right word. But he says no. He'll just only put the ice on the sore spot to heal. But she screams as her father puts into her boot and asks what's wrong. She calmly said that the ice is cold. But again, Jane tells Arthur to apologize to DW for being aggressive, but he doesn't want to apologize because she destroyed the plane, which took him weeks to build. But then he claims DW that she should apologize to him, since he repeatedly warned her not to touch it, and a failure to comply resulted in the destruction of his hard work. David passes by holding DW to his arm, and she unfortunately says bitter things to Arthur that he is bad. So in the living room, his parents and Arthur actually discuss on what's going to happen. Because Arthur actually refuses to own up for his actions, David severely scolds Arthur and punishes him by saying he cannot watch TV for a week. Arthur thinks it's really unfair that his parents are not acknowledging what DW had did to his model plane. Jane tells them that they will deal with DW, what she did, but what Arthur did was wrong too. It didn't solve the problem. Still, Arthur disagreed that he was overreacted by being brutal to DW. Okay, maybe that was actually too far. It's because one, I don't think that's actually the word you're supposed to use, being violent, like he was actually being like, rough or aggressive. That's the word I would use in terms of being brutal, because, sometimes they'll probably say if you're just trying to be brutal, then different word, okay? But the thing is that aggressive is the word that we normally use if you're really going to hurt someone, okay? Anyways, let's continue the video. Okay, so before class started, Arthur walked with Buster and told him what happened the other day and sulks about the punishment he got. However, his best friend refuses to listen to Arthur's side of the story. Pinky overhears their conversation and thinks it's shocking that Arthur had hit his sister. The tough customers actually ask how Pinky could be shocked, given the reputation of being tough to everyone. Molly then realizes that she can't remember the last time Pinky hit someone. Later, Pinky's friends then dare to hit him if he doesn't want to be kicked out of the club. Pinky protests that he is the one who founded the club in the first place, and Molly tells him that there are other members in the club. Pinky can't have everything his way, so she orders him to punch Arthur the next time she sees him. Pinky refuses to hit Arthur, so he avoids looking at Arthur for the rest of the school day, and eventually he won't be forced to hit him. So Francine actually asks Arthur why he doesn't want to apologize to DW. He then complains that no one is taking her side, and Muppy replies it's because Arthur is the one in the wrong. Francine discusses with Pinky what Arthur did, but he doesn't say anything that he hasn't seen Arthur, and as far as he knows, he wasn't there. He was disgusted what he did to DW at lunch, and when Pinky won't eat near Arthur, Buster actually thinks that Arthur and Pinky need to be brought together. During the second recesses, Arthur then talks to one of the students, Fern, who tries to sympathize with him. She just tells him that DW is just a little girl, which Arthur resorts to calling DW is a little girl calling into a tornado, just like the little wind. By the sugar bowl after school, Arthur runs towards Pinky and the tough customers and tells Pinky that he dropped his pen as he ran out of school, kinda sideways. Pinky's friends urge him to hit Arthur. At first, being reluctant, he finally does it, making Arthur feel hurt and humiliated. And that's how he was punched by Pinky. So, as Arthur got home, he got himself an ice pack from David and reflects on the embarrassment as he felt. And his dad tells him that maybe DW felt the same way when Arthur did punch her. Arthur then tries to deny that there is a comparison between saying Pinky is huge, but he admits that he understands it very well. Now knowing that hitting her was never the right way to solve anything, Arthur finally apologizes to his sister, and then she apologizes to him to return for wrecking his plane. She asks him what kind of plane does it fly. He just says model plane. Now DW, having learned her lesson, responds by saying she doesn't know and that she was a child after all to give her a break. The next day, Binky apologizes to Arthur and he ends up thanking him for making him understand how bad that DW would have felt if Arthur hit her. The other tough customers stop by and think Arthur is tough, but he survived being hit by Binky. Molly invites Arthur to join the tough customers, but Binky wants to quit the club and abandon it, telling them that making someone to do something they don't want to is really wrong. Binky decides to find a new club with no aggression. Will cover everyone that breaks the rule. So yeah, that was actually the end of the episode of how Arthur got into trouble. Yeah, I know. A lot of people just say like the W is actually a brat or so, but in some episodes, the W's personality changes as, sometimes she's a girl who is a bit of a brat, but it doesn't exactly mean that she can get her own way, Alright. So Arthur actually did get banned from watching TV for a week after punching DW. It's a similar episode to him and the rest of Elwood City, the citizens of Elwood City, not watching TV for a whole week. And in the episode DW and Doctor Who sit, DW also gets banned from watching TV in a week. So actually, yes, in Bleep, another episode of Arthur, he worked on a model plane that looks identical to the one in the episode. And then it says it happened again. This could refer that the model plane was breaking again, or something was breaking because DW had said a bad word. And actually, both Arthur and DW were both punched on the left arm. So what did we learn from this episode? We learned that it's never okay to hurt anyone, especially if you want to punch someone. It's not okay. This can actually happen to people, especially at school, college, everywhere. Not just your home, okay? And eventually, a lot of people do get punched if they are violent or, upset. I would just say that sometimes this would mean that sometimes people get their own way. They just say, possibly becoming aggressive is the right thing. But unfortunately though, they still get in trouble and they suffer the serious consequences that can lead into punishments or sometimes jail. Sometimes it does happen a lot. So yes, and actually we do learn a lot from this lesson from Arthur. Despite it being a kid show, there are still some morals to be learned even if you are still an adult. Because sometimes, when you learn things like that, everyone will treat you the way you are, okay? Yeah, this definitely does happen to a lot of people, especially, the outsiders. So, actually, 6 morals are learned from this episode. Arthur learns that violence doesn't solve any problems. It would eventually come back to you with consequences. He also learns that you shouldn't use a loss as an excuse to not apologize because it's selfish, and never use people as a scapegoat because of forced problems, and no matter how it's bad, it's always apologize. He also learns that 2 things do not make a right. Binky also made tough customers learn that it's wrong to force someone to do something they don't want to do. DW learns not to count her chickens before they're hatched, because those who count their chickens before they hatch even end up with an egg on their face. Okay? She also learns that she has to respect other people's property. Always ask first before you touch something that does not belong to you. And as well as this, if you break something, you'll pay. Yeah, so that was actually the morals of the story and the episode, why you should never do a thing like that. And I know sometimes it could be worse than these episodes. Like, so funny, I forgot to laugh from Arthur. I just say that sometimes kids really need to learn, and by the time they grow into adults, then yes, they would normally, grow up to become smart adults. They would normally become good people, and eventually I know that sometimes people would have just do something like that. And basically, yes, I know one of the reasons why people will be always like that. Sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're good, but just try and judge your judgments. Okay, yeah. But anyways, I really think that's all for now. I really don't have to say anything about this. Yes, I know it is a long video, and I do apologize in advance if the video was really long.